Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Kiddushin Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph Shavua Tov. Right, 70-71. We're starting a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Bat Halal Zachar Pesula Min Akeuna. When we're talking about Bat Halal Zachar, is going to be Pesula from the Keuna. Remember, Bat Halal means the daughter of a Halal Zachar. So you have a Halal. What's a Halal?
Kohen.
No, not a regular Kohen. No.
Yeah.
So when you have a Kohen that gets married to a Ben Grusha, Ben Chalutza, the child, right? For example, so this Ben Grusha, Ben Chalutza, the child is called a Halal. He's desecrated. He's not a Kohen. He's a Kohen, but he's a Kohen desecrated. From then onwards, his children are Halalim. What does it mean Halalim? They cannot do the service in the Bet HaMikdash. They are disqualified. So the daughter of this Kohen Halal, right, is Pesula, right, Mina Kiuna. Yeah, is going to be disqualified from the Kiuna. Le'olam, forever. Okay? So now he comes and he says, yeah, Israel, Shenasa Halala, please, yeah, Israel, Shenasa Halala, when you have a Israel that got married to a Halala, Bito Kshera la Kiuna. The daughter is kosher for the Kiuna. So one more time, let's come outside, but some people are busy with their coffees. One more time. The daughter of a Halal, okay, the daughter of a Halal, that daughter is Psula forever from the Kiuna. So one more time, you have a Halal. Halal means that his father got married to a Grusha or a Chalutza, and therefore he loses the status of the Kiuna, not the father, but the son. So that son is called a Halal. This Halal, right, if he has a daughter, that daughter is Psula le'olam. She's always prohibited to... Not only she loses, she cannot get married to a Kohen. That's what it means. She loses the Kiuna. Anyway, the father already lost the Kiuna, but it said she loses and she cannot get married to anything. Yes, so he comes and he says, right? So he comes and he says this. He says, Yisrael shenasa halala. He says a Yisrael that comes and gets married to a halala, bito kshera la kiuna. So the daughter is permitted to marry, right, a Kohen. Halal shenasa bat Yisrael. A halal that gets married to a bat Yisrael, bito psula la kiuna. The daughter is prohibited to the kiuna. Okay, so until here we're clear. Okay. We use the Mishnah, and the Mishnah says as follows. Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, Bat Ger Zachar, okay, when you have the daughter of a male convert, is like a Bat Halal Zachar, is like the daughter of a Halal Zachar, and therefore they're psulim to the Kiuna, which means like this. We know that a Gioret cannot get married to a Kohen. Why can a Gioret not get married to a Kohen? No, but why? What's the reason? Why can a Gioret not get married to a Kohen? Because she's considered a Zonah. A Gioret, unless it's going to be that she converted with less than 3 years old in one day, she's considered a Zonah. Why do I consider her a Zonah? Meaning that she already had relations. Now, I don't care about if you're going to... Yes. Now, even if you're going to do tests and everything, we don't care. There's a Gezerah. Any type of a convert after 3 years old and one day, she loses status. By the way, you should know, this halacha applies even not only to a Kohen. I'll give you an example. This actually happened, I remember, right? Doesn't matter where, right? But it actually happened. And the case is as follows. It happens all the time, right? But when I saw it, it was in a certain place. Yeah? So he comes and he says like this. What happens right now if you have a chatan that gets married to a gioret? How many days of Sheva Berachot do they have? Chatan to a Gioret. Which one? No, 42. She's a full Gioret.
Three.
Huh?
No.
Chatan.
Could be one.
Huh? First night only. So I'm going to tell you. It was a trick question.
Never.
Because you guys have to ask me the very simple question. What is the halacha of the chatan? What type of a chatan? If it's a person that never got married, you always do 7. I don't care about the girl. Meaning, even if you have a regular chatan getting married to grusha, I mean, she's divorced. 7 days. Right? Meaning, right? Doesn't matter whether you have, right, one of them that was not married, you always have 7. What happens if the Khatan is already divorced? But she's a Betula. She was never married. You have 7. You get 7. What happens now if she's a Gioret? So if she's a Gioret after 3 years old and 1 day, she's already considered like divorced. So therefore, if he was never married, right? 7. So then it's 7. But if he was married and she's married, it's only 1 day. 3 days, like the doctor said, right? 3 days, and Eitan also, right? The 3 days, what Richard was mentioning was for Simcha, was for working. Meaning like this, for 7 days, if he gets married for a Betula, he's not allowed to work. He's not allowed to work for 7 days. He has to take off congé, right? He has to take off vacation, vacances, 7 days. He's not allowed to work. However, though, right, if it's going to be that he and she were not, right, Betula and Betul, meaning that it wasn't that he was already previously married, she was previously married, so then it's going to be 3 days. That's to do with the Simcha. But to do with Sheva Brachot, it's 1 day. So therefore, you see this halacha, even to do with nowadays, forget about Kohen, regular halacha. A girl is a Gioret. So first of all, halacha number 1, if she's over the age of 3 in 1 day, she's Sulat to the Kiuna. She can never get married to a Kohen. Number 2, to do with Sheva Brachot. Meaning, if she gets married to somebody that was previously married, she does not have Sheva Brachot. Why? She was a Gioret after 3 years and 1 day. So Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says like this: when you have Bat Ger Zachar, which means when you have a daughter of a Ger Zachar. Now we know that a Gioret is not allowed to get married to a Kohen. Why? She's considered a Zona. Now we're going to speak about what about the daughter of a Ger? Not a Gioret, the daughter of a Ger. So remember, a Gioret means that the female converted. So a female that converts, she's not allowed to get married to a Kohen if it was after 3 years and 1 day. What about now a case, the daughter of a male Ger? So that means the daughter of a male convert. So says Rabbi Yehuda, Bat Ger Zachar is like Bat Halal Zachar, which means the same halachot that apply to Bat Halal Zachar that we already said at the beginning of the Mishnah. That was the first case of the Mishnah, which she's psula to the kiuna forever. The same halacha applies to the daughter of a male convert.
This is the most strict of 3 opinions you can
have. 100%. Next, somebody that argues, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Yisrael shenasa gioret, when you have a Yisrael that gets married to a gioret, bitok shera la kiuna. So the daughter is going to be kosher for the kiuna. So this is like the second case that we saw before. When you had a case of a Yisrael getting married to a halala, now you have a case of a Yisrael getting married to a gioret. The child is kshera la kiuna. That was the second case in the previous part of the Mishnah. So 2 years, the same thing. When you have a Yisrael getting married to a gioret, remember, Yisrael is allowed to get married to a gioret. There's no isud. So imagine you have a girl, she converted. I don't care the age that when she converted, but now she comes and she gets married to a regular Jew. That child is kosher for the kiuna. There's no problem. Ger shenasa bat Yisrael. When you have a ger that gets married to a bat Yisrael, pitok shera la kiuna. The daughter is also going to be kosher to the kiuna. So this one is not like Rabbi Yehuda that we just learned.
This is the second position.
Right?
If either a parent is a Jew, you're good.
Yes. Okay. So one more time. Ger shenasa bat Yisrael, pitok shera la kiuna, which is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda just told you that if it's ger, right, gets married to a bat Israel, the child is prohibited. Now Rabbi Eliezer says the child is permitted. Aval ger shenasa gioret. What happens if both of them are getting? Yeah, both of them are getting. Meaning it's a ger that gets married to a gioret, a convert that gets married to a convert. So he says bitop psula lekiuna. The daughter is pasul for the kiuna. Echad ger veechad avadim shuchrim. Doesn't matter whether they're gerim or eved kananim that they were freed. Afilu ad asara dorot, even if it's going to be 10 generations or more. Ad shetehe imo o aviv misrael, until the mother or the father has to be a Yisrael, which means according to the shita, one of the parents cannot be a ger. One of the parents has to be a full-fledged Jew. If one of the parents is not a full-fledged Jew, there's nothing what to talk about. Okay? So that's what he says over here. Third shita. Which one?
Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Eliezer said also that you can go to the kiuna.
Exactly. She cannot go to the kiuna. Right? Exactly. That means both of them are getting. Okay? 1 second. Rabbi Yosef comes and he says, right? He comes and he says this, Af ger shenasag yoret, vitok shera lekuna. The daughter is kasher to kuna. So one more time. If I'm going to give you a very quick summary, because I know somebody is going to ask me right now for the summary, so I'll already give it to you from the beginning. One more time. The Reisha of the Mishnah, right? The Reisha of the Mishnah is the former part of the Mishnah. The former part of the Mishnah spoke about 3 different cases. The first case was when you had a daughter of a halal. So the daughter of a halal, the child, that daughter is prohibited for kiuna le'olam. The second case is that what happens if a Yisrael gets married to a halala? So if a Yisrael gets married to a halala, which means that the father was a Kohen and he got married, let's say, to divorcee, right? And then the child was a daughter. So that daughter gets married to a regular Yisrael. The daughter of that union is permitted to kiuna. That was the second case. Third case was a halal that got married to a bat Yisrael. So when a halal gets married to a bat Yisrael, the daughter is psula to kiuna. Okay, that's the former part of the Mishnah, the Reish of the Mishnah. Then we come and we speak about what about Gerim. Now we're getting into the Sugya of Gerim. So, Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, there's going to be 3 Shitot, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Yosef. So there are 3 different spectrums, right? To the left, to the right, and the center. So let's start with the left. When it's talking about Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, the daughter of a male convert is like the daughter of a halal zachar, which means that even though the mother is 100% Jewish, think about it, the mother is 100% Jewish. The father was a convert, that daughter, not allowed to get married to a Kohen. So that's on the left, Asura to Kiuna.
Not allowed to get married
to a Kohen, no. Okay, that's all the way on the left. Let's go to the center. What is the center? Rabbi Eliezer comes and he says, Yisrael that gets married to Gioret, the daughter's kosher, a ger that gets married to a regular Jewish woman, the daughter's kosher. So this is the middle ground because you have one parent that's Jewish. Aval ger that gets married to a Gioret, the daughter's psula. Okay, so therefore, right, according to Rabbi Eliezer, he's the middle ground. As long as one of the parents are Jewish, the child is kosher to the kiuna. But he says, but if they're both not Jewish, meaning they both converted, ger to Gioret, not allowed to get married to kiuna. Comes Rabbi Yosef, which is on the other right part of the spectrum. Even a ger that gets married to Gioret, the daughter is going to be kosher to get married to the kiuna. So you have all 3 right parts of the spectrum. Okay, we're going to see the Gemara. Gemara is obviously going to explain the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, when the Gemara comes, right, and the Gemara is going to explain. Did you realize that in the first case of the Mishnah says, Abat Halal Zachar Pesula Mina Kiuna Le'olam, forever. Why do I have to use the terminology forever? Le'olam, forever. What's forever? So says the Gemara, my Le'olam, what does it mean Le'olam? Right? What does that mean? Meaning, remember, Gemara comes and is going to try to analyze the Mishnah and step by step. So if we're going to try to understand the last little shita, so then we're going to wait until the end of the Gemara to actually see that. But we're going to analyze the Mishnah step by step. So the first step was, what is the word le'olam? My le'olam. So says the Gemara, ma'u detema, I would have thought to say, amid dehava a mitzri v'adomi. I would have thought to say that the psul of a halal is like a mitzri and an adomi. Ma le'halan, just like over there, la'achar shlosha dorot, after 3 generations, to do with the gen mitzri or adomi, right? Only the child is considered a mitzri, right? Or an adomi. But the grandchild, which is the 3rd generation, dor shelishi, is permitted to come into the kal. Afkan, I would have thought to say nami, le'achar shlosha dorot. It would also be 3 generations. Kamash Malan comes to teach you our Mishnah that it's le'olam. Yeah? So one more time. The Mishnah, right, is actually teaching us a chidush. That don't come and tell me that it's like a mitzri. Mitzri, you have an Egyptian. He converts to Judaism. He's not allowed to get married to a regular Jew. The child is not allowed to get married to a regular Jew. 3rd generation, which means his grandchild, is allowed to come into the kal. Because it's 3 generations. So the 1st generation, right, is called mitzri rishon. 2nd generation, kli sheni, mitzri sheni. 3rd generation, kli shlishi, is mutar. So mitzri shli, right, shlishi, he's mutar lavo bakal. He's allowed to come and to get married into the kahal. Okay? So now he comes and he says like this.
Le'olam is not only for the first part of the Mishnah, after they don't say it.
Yes, 100%. It's only the first part of the Mishnah. 1 minute. So therefore, the psul one more time, the psul, the defect of halal goes forever.
But after the same case.
One minute. Okay. But that's why he told us that the first case, leolam. Because now that I know that it's going to apply to everything. Meaning, the isur of halal never goes away. The isur of mitzri, after 3 generations, the grandchild is already permitted to come to the kal. But the isur of halal never goes away. Next part. We said in the Mishnah, Yisrael, again, we're analyzing the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Yisrael shenasa halala. A Yisrael that gets married to a halala, the daughter is going to be kosher to kuna. Minanamile, how do we know these words? How do we know that? How do we know that the daughter is going to be kosher kuna? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Ishmael, says Rabbi Yochanan named Rabbi Ishmael, Ne'emar kan, it says in the pasuk by a Kohen Gadol that gets married to somebody that's pasul, it says, Velo yechalel zaro be'amav. You're not allowed to desecrate the children, right? He's not allowed to desecrate his children from amongst the nation. And it says over there by a Kohen that the wife dies, Lo yitama ba'al be'amav le'echalo, which means he's not allowed to contaminate himself, right? What does that mean? Ma lehalan zechadim velo nekevot, afkan zechadim velo nekevot, which means like that. By tum'ah, a Kohen, is he allowed to go to the cemetery? No. Who can he go to the cemetery for? How many members of family?
7.
7 family members. What are the 7 family members? Parents, siblings. Which siblings? Brother, sister, not married. Very good, Jackie.
Half brother,
and
what?
Yeah, and son and daughter. Yeah. Son and daughter. Okay, son and daughter. And the wife. That's how you get 7. So one more time.
What about
right? No. Right? So one more time. You have father, mother, son and daughter, right? Brother, sister, not married, and wife. Those are the 7. You go up, down, to the side. That's it. Okay? So, says the Gemara, just like Tum'ah is only by males. Can a woman that she's a Kohenet go to the cemetery? Yes. She doesn't have the Yisur of Tum'ah. The Yisur of Tum'ah is only by a man. Meaning a woman that she's married to a Kohen, she can go to the cemetery. There's no Yisur, right?
He doesn't transfer that to the...
No, it does not. Yeah? So he comes and he says like this. He says, Lo yitama ba'al be'amav le'echalo. In the olden days, when you had paraduma, then things would transfer over, and then obviously she has to get sprinkled with paraduma. But nowadays, it does not mean, but she doesn't have a Yisur. Meaning a Kohen cannot just say, you know what, I'm going to go to the cemetery and just sprinkle me. He's not allowed to do that. But a Kohenet, she's allowed lechatchila, go to the cemetery. There's no problem, right? It was never any suit for her. So says the Gemara, just like over there to do with tum'ah, it's only by the males and not by the females. So to the psul of halalut, of being a halal, is only by males and not by females. And therefore, as we already mentioned, if she's going to get married, meaning, how do we start this off? We said, if a Yisrael gets married to a halala, we said the daughter, there's no problem. Why? Because the halala is only a psul in her that she cannot get married to a Kohen. But the second that she got married to a regular Jew, and now that they have a child, that child already, that's it. There's no problem. They could get married to a regular Kohen because the halalut stopped there. The buck stops here, as they say. Okay? What? Halala. Yeah. One second. No. Let's continue a little bit, guys. Let me just continue a little bit, and then afterwards write down the questions and then ask. Okay? Says the Gemara, Ela me'ata, right? Ela me'ata, right? אני לא הייתי צריך, אבל הוא שאל משהו על ההבנה. אלא מעטה. Right? אלא מעטה. So now we're going to ask the following question. ביתו של כהן גדול, תשתירי? He comes and he says like this. He says, the daughter of a Kohen Gadol, right? Are you going to tell me that she's going to be permitted now? Which means that you have a daughter of a Kohen Gadol, that a Kohen went and he got married, right, to a woman that's prohibited to her, right, to him. So now you're going to say what? She's going to be permitted because of this Gzira Shava? That means basically it doesn't go to her. So says the Gemara, no, you can't say that. Why? Mi kativ is written beno, lo yichalel beno be'amav. It says zar'o be'amav. What is zar'o? Lo yichalel zar'o be'amav. That teaches you that it's any of the children. So therefore you see from here that it's any of the children. So says the Gemara, okay, fine. So bat beno tishtiri. Are you going to then permit the grandson, which is basically the granddaughter, sorry. It's the daughter of the son. You're going to say that she's going to be permitted?
Yes.
So the answer is the Gemara, Ktiv lo yichalel zaro makish zar'o lo. We make a kesh, a juxtaposition. What is the juxtaposition? Right? If it says over here like this, it says makish zar'o lo. Mahu bito pesula, af beno bito pesula. Just like the daughter is going to be pasul, so too the son, the daughter is going to be pasul. But bito titzar, so he says like this, he says, 1 second, but the granddaughter should be prohibited then. Yeah, what does that mean it should be prohibited? Since the word zar'o is going to include the girls, so therefore if we're going to make a kesh, right, we're being makish, so he says, we're going to come and be makish the kohen to the daughter, and we're going to say that the daughter is psula, so to the granddaughter is going to be psula. So answers the Gemara, if so, gezerah shava mayahanile. So therefore, what does it help me, the gezerah shava? If you're going to tell me that it doesn't matter whether it's going to be the granddaughter, whether it's coming from the son, or the granddaughter coming from the daughter, right? It's going to be psulot. So therefore, on which females is the gezerah telling me, the gezerah shava telling me that it's not going to be pasul, right? What's going on then? So obviously, right, we have to say the gezerah shava is actually telling me that it's only on males and not on females.
Yeah, you lost me.
Yeah?
Right.
One more time. Yeah? Next, we're by the 2 dots, where the 2 dots says halal shenasa bat Yisrael. When you have a halal that gets married to a bat Yisrael. Okay, so one more time. You have a halal, that means a male halal. He got married to a regular Jew, a regular Jewish woman. Bito, the daughter, is going to be psula to the kiuna. Says the Gemara, Hataran l'reisha. We already learned this in the first part of the Mishnah. Bat halal zachar mi psula mina kiuna l'olam. The daughter of a halal zachar is going to be psula mina kiuna l'olam. So why do I have this again? Meaning, if already the first case of the Mishnah was that a halal that gets married to a regular bat Yisrael, his daughter is a halala and never allowed to get married to the Kohen, why do I need then the next case also? Next case is the exact same case. Bat halal zachar psula mina kiuna. So why do I need then a halal that gets married to a bat Yisrael, the daughter's psula? I already have it. Meaning case 1 and 3 is the same. Turn back to the Mishnah. Case 1 and 3 is the same. In the former part of the Mishnah, in the reisha of the Mishnah, it's the exact same case. Right? So answers the Gemara. I did the Tana reisha, since the reisha taught Israel shenasa halala, a Yisrael that got married to a halala, Tanana Masechet halal shenasa bat Yisrael. So therefore we taught a halal that got married to a bat Yisrael. Meaning it was symmetry. Exactly. Meaning that it was just derech hagav. Meaning derech hagav, we already mentioned, by the way, if we already mentioned this case, so we're going to, even though technically speaking it's the exact same case as the first one, but we just, by the way, we just brought it down. Okay, that's all that he's saying. Fine. Next, so matznit in our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Dostai ben Yehuda. It's not like Rabbi Dostai ben Yehuda. The Tanya was learned in the right time. Rabbi Dostai ben Yehuda Omer, Keshem shebnei Yisrael mikveh tahara lechalalot, just like bnei Yisrael are mikveh tahara to chalalot, kach benot Yisrael mikveh tahara lechalalim. So too benot Yisrael are going to be mikveh tahara lechalalim, which means this. You remember that according to Shitat Rabbi Dostai ben Yehuda, we learned this a few times already, a ben Yisrael is going to be mitaher the children of a halala. Because if you have a regular Jew getting married to a halala, what happens to the child? The daughter is permitted to get married to a Kohen. So therefore, right? So therefore, just like the Bnei Yisrael is a mikveh tahara. Mikveh tahara means it's a purification process. For a halala, for halalot. So to Benot Yisrael, the girls are a mikveh tahara for the males. So therefore, obviously, our Mishnah is not according to this.
I always thought it was the other way around. The one we knew about is the girls, a woman, a wife Jew is the purifier. I thought that was where we started. Here it's saying the opposite.
Exactly, because that was the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, when you have a Ben Israel, right? One more time, you have a halal. Halal gets married to a regular Jew. What happens to that child? Is that child allowed to get married to Kohen?
No.
Yes.
No, halal amar. No.
That was the first thing.
Halal mevi ben?
One more time. What?
Halal mevi ben, no.
One more time. Ben Israel is married to halala. Right?
So halal.
So I don't remember. Okay, fine. Maybe if I said it was a mistake. One more time. Ben Israel gets married to a halala. Right? A regular Jew gets married to a halala. The child, right, is allowed to get married to a regular to a Kohen. There's no problem. So to here, the Benot Israel, right, which is basically the girls, the females, they are going to be mikveh tahara to chalalim, which means that if right now, right, she gets married to him, the daughter should be married to a kiuna. This is a shita of Rabbi Dostai with Yehuda, which obviously our Mishnah does not go like that. Meaning our Mishnah does not go like this. That means basically that it's like purifying on both ends. Meaning, whether you have a halal or halala, just tell them, get married to a regular Jew. and then the child is always kosher. That is the shita of Rabbi Tostai ben Yehuda. It doesn't matter, male, female, right? What do you mean, boy?
And the boy will be married.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? The second that one of them is going to marry to a regular Jew, it purifies him. That's the shita of Rabbi Tostai ben Yehuda. We don't pass like that. Okay, fine. My tamed Rabbi Tostai ben Yehuda. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Tostai ben Yehuda? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, "Lo yichalel zar'o be'amav." What does it mean be'amav? It does not say be'amemav. It says be'amav. Be'amav is singular. It does not say in plural be'amemav, and therefore, right, be'amo means in his nation. So therefore, it says be'am echad udmechel, meaning the child is only going to be contaminated in one family, like with one am, but not with two ams, which means not going to be in two different families. Okay. And therefore, the pasuk is actually teaching us the chalalut that is going down from generation to generation is only be'am echad, right? What does that mean? From the father and the mother, which means both of them are chalalim. But if one of them is not a halal, it does not go down. Okay, until here we're clear.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, fine. So says the Gemara. Okay, says the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in a Braita. Okay, lo yichalel zar'o el yela zar'o. When it says lo yichalel zar'o, it's only zar'o. Hi atzma minayin. How do we know that she, which means that a woman becomes a halala? How do we know? Which means this pasuk is teaching us that if a kohen has relations with a disqualified woman, the child becomes a halal. How do we know that the woman herself becomes a halala? Meaning, let's say you had, right, a regular bat Israel, right? How do we know that now that she has relations with this halal, she becomes also a halala? How do we know that? Okay, so he comes and he says, right, like this. So he says, Amarta kal v'chomer, you make a kal v'chomer. Mazar'o shelo avar avera mitchalel. If the children do not do an avera, they become halalim. He shavra avera, she did an avera. Enodin shemitchalelet. Obviously, she should become she should have.
Just interject here for a second.
Right? Therefore, he comes and he says, so obviously it's going to be a kavachomer. What's a kavachomer? The kavachomer is, if right now the children, which they did not do an avera, mitchalel, she did an avera. She got married to somebody. She got married to a kohen, and she's not allowed to get married to a kohen. So says the Gemara, but 1 second, what about the kohen himself? Hu atzmo yochiach. Shavar avera v'no mitchalel. Do you know that this kohen has something which is very interesting? This kohen does not become 100% disqualified. So, for example, you have a
the husband.
Says the Gemara, right? Imagine right now, right? You have this kohen. He gets married to a divorced woman. Is the kohen allowed to get married to a divorced woman? No. Okay. Can he do bika kohenim when he's married to her? No. Can he get aliyat kohen? No.
He divorced her, he's back in good.
If he divorces her, plus he has to swear, right? He divorces her and he swears. He has to swear that he will never get married to a woman that's prohibited to him. All of a sudden, he's allowed to do everything. Right? He goes to do bika kohenim. He's allowed. Now, 1 second, but in between, he got married to the divorced woman. He had children. Those children are halalim. But he himself, all of a sudden, he gets rid of her, and all of a sudden, he's allowed to continue. Right? He's allowed to continue. As if like nothing happened.
The concept doesn't exist for women.
He did an infection, but then afterwards, he got fixed.
This concept
right?
doesn't exist for women.
What? No. So he comes and he says this. Malehu, just like him, he does not become disqualified forever, right? That means he does not become disqualified forever. But she becomes disqualified forever, right? She becomes disqualified forever. No, the kids stays halalim forever. Yeah. Right? By the way, you should know it's not that difficult to understand such a concept. It's the exact same concept by mamzer. Think about it. A person went, right, and he committed adultery. He went with a married woman. He's a Rasha Merusha, he's whatever you want. But does the guy go up to the Torah? Does the guy get everything? Yeah. But the child is a mamzer. Misken the child, he's a mamzer. Right? But did the child do anything wrong? The child didn't do anything wrong. But he came from such a union. The father, nothing happened to him. 100%. But at the end of the day,
your reporting?
Now, if you're going to tell me, the pasuk says, "Lo yechalel zaro, lo yechulal, haresh haya kasher v'nitchalel." When it says "v'lo yechalel zaro" means, right, that we're making a drasha. We're talking about somebody that was lo yechulal zaro, which means we're talking about somebody that was kasher and they became a halal. Meaning that the woman was ksheratu kiuna, and then she became halal through the relations to this kohen. which means that at the time that she was Chalal, Psula for the Kohen Ediot. So, Ma'im Nafshecha Lomar, what does it mean now when we're talking about now that there's going to be a stira to this Kal V'chomer? What stira do you actually have? V'chiti, man, if you're going to tell me, right? If you're going to tell me now, you could ask the following question. He says, what about the children that the creation was within Avera? The pasuk says, lo yichalel, lo yichulal, ze shaya kasher v'nitchalel. So therefore, that's what it means. It means like this. This is what Richard mentioned before. Some people are born into the defect, meaning it was already into their DNA. Into their DNA, they were formed with this defect. And by the way, that's the reason why a mamzer has a lot of audacity. Why does it have a lot of audacity? Because since the parents did an act of such an audacity that they basically committed adultery, so therefore it goes in the DNA of the child. And therefore the child, that's what it says, usually a mamzer is azpanim, right? He's very, very, he's got a lot of azut metzach. So when he says, right, is like this. He says, when it says lo yechulal, when it comes and he says lo yechulal, he comes and he says, ze shaya kasher v'nitchalel. Now, one more time, there's one person that it goes down in the DNA, that it actually goes inside of them. There's another person that they become a halal. Becoming a halal, it wasn't in their DNA. They became desecrated later on as something different. So the chitim, and if you're going to tell me now, you could ask a question, Mal zaro, sheken yitzirato ba'avira. The creation was done with an avira. So the pasuk says, lo yichalel. Obviously, we're talking about somebody that was already kosher and became a halal. That's talking about the woman. So, Tana Rabbanan, we learned in a braita. Okay, Ezui halala. What is a halala? Kol shenolda min apsulim. Anybody that was nolda from a pasul. So, anybody that's going to be nolda from a pasul is a halala. So, my psulim. What does it mean psulim now? Ilem la psulim lo. If you're going to tell me now that it's going to be psulim to him, which means that a daughter that came from a biat Israel to somebody that's going to be even kasher to the so machzir grushato the psula lo ubanei aksherim. What about machzir grushato? We know that there's a mitzvah, right, to get married to your divorced wife. Meaning somebody comes and he divorces his wife. There's a mitzvah to take her back. What? We want you to make a mistake again. No. The reason why is because we say there's a mitzvah, right? There's a mitzvah to come and to take back your previous wife. It's called machzir grushato.
You have that on the record?
Yeah. Right? He says machzir grushato. So he says, what's a machzir grushato? That you're going to take her back. He says, however, though, a kohen, can he be machzir grushato?
No.
So now, if he gets married to this woman, right, she's psula lo because he already divorced her. But her children, right, are going to be kosher to the kiuna. The children previously are going to be kosher to kiuna. Okay, dichtiv, because he comes and he says in the pasuk. 1 second. Toevahi. What does it mean toevahi? He toeva. She's an abomination. Them banei toevim. But the children are not going to be a toevim. So Amar of Yudah says of Yudah, Haki Kamar. This is what it means to say, right? What does that mean? She's considered an abomination and not the children, which means the children are not going to be psulim. Why? So we did find a case where you have a daughter that she comes from a union of a biat ish with an isha psulalo, and bechol zot, she does not become a halala. She does not become a halala. So if so, you do see here a case of the psulim that is for all of Israel. So Amar Rav Yudah comes and he says, "Hachi, what does it say? Ezui halala. What is a halala? Koshen nolda psul kiuna." Meaning like this. At the beginning, we had a havamina that the psul of halala could apply to any Jew. It doesn't apply to any Jew.
Now we're saying just
it
girls.
Only to the kiuna. But you have to add in, it has to come from an isur to a kohen. Meaning halalut does not apply to any type of a Jew. It only applies to a kohen. Okay? Nolda'in.
Kohen male.
Kohen male, yeah, Kohen male. So he comes and he says, Nolda'in, lo nolda lo. And it's only if they actually have a child. Hare almana grusha zona, te lo nolda. V'kavya halala. What about an almana? Grusha v'zona. They did not have any type of a child, right? But they still become halalim. So therefore, what's going on then? Here you have a case that there's no children, right? Somebody once asked me that. Said, Rabbi, what's the problem? We just want to have children. So yeah, but you're doing an isur all your life. What do you care about now? The children. The children are the aftermath. It's an extra step. But right now you're committing adultery. You're doing an avirah. What do I care about the children? The children is an extra smack in the face, right? But before the children, there's the actual avirah going on. So he says here, what happens if they didn't have children? So what? An almanah could get married to a kohen gadol? or a grusha v'chalutza could get married to a kohen idiot? Obviously not. So he comes and he says that she becomes a chalala. So Amar Rabba comes and he says, this is what he needs to say. Ezo chalala muskeret. What is a chalala which is mentioned? Shelo yala shata kosher klal. She never had a time that she was kasher. That she had from a psul of a kiuna, which means that it was a woman that was prohibited to her. My muskeret, what does it mean exactly? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Baravin says, say, Ezo chalala shikara midivrei Torah. What is a chalala which the ikara comes from divrei Torah? We do not have to mention that it's going to be divrei sofrim, which is the Rabbanan. Remember, divrei sofrim is the Rabbanan, right? Divrei Torah is from the Torah. Anybody that's going to be born from a psul of a kiuna, which means the chalala that the Torah says is a daughter that was born from a kohen that had relations to a woman that was prohibited to him. And when it says ve'lo yichalel zar'o, if it's going to be a chalala, she had shata kosher because she was mitchalelet. She became a chalala through a prohibited relations. So that's learned from the pirush divrei sofrim, which is basically from the Kol V'chomer or from the diktuk of Yichalel, but not because of the Torah. Meaning in the Torah, I only know of a child which is born to become a chalala, not from how do you call this? Not from a woman that she went with a kohen and she became a halal. That we learn from the Sofrim. We don't learn that from the Torah. Okay, then it's from the Torah. If you're going to tell me an almanah got married to a kohen gadol, she becomes a halala. Does that mean a Torah? We don't learn it from the Torah. We learn it from the Sofrim. A grusha v'chalutza, she got married to a kohen, regular kohen, so she becomes a halala. Do we learn that from the Torah? We learn that from the Sofrim. Okay. No, this is the Torah. The Torah says. No, the Rabbanan that she herself becomes. Yes. The Rabbanan made that. The Rabbanan made that. That's the Psul Rabbanan. In order to keep it. No. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned to the Braita, Almana, eno chayav elachat. When it says Kohen Gadol that has relations with an Almana, it says Almana. What does it mean here when it's going to be written about the Almana? When it says Almana, it's only going to be 1 lashes. Right? Now, when you have a Kohen Gadol or Kohen Agediot that has grusha, right? What does that mean? The Gemara is going to explain what are we talking about exactly. So grusha is also going to be 1 lashes. Almana grusha v'chalala zona, right? What does that mean now? So it says bizman shehem kaseded. If it's going to be that they're all kaseded, which means that she got married to a man, she became an almana. She got married to a man, she got divorced, and then afterwards she got married to a kohen, and she becomes a chalala. And then afterwards, right? Then she had relations with a pasul, and she becomes a zona. So chayav al kol achat ve'achat. Everyone understood what happened? One more time. A Kohen Gadol, who's he not allowed to marry?
Widow.
Widow and everybody. Very good. Kohen Idiot, who's he not allowed to get married? Right? Grusha, Chalutza, Zona, but she's allowed to get married to an Almana. Okay, fine. What happens if you have a person that goes, let's say a Kohen Gadol goes with an Almana. He gets 1 set of lashes. Let's say he goes with an Almana and a Grusha. So maybe you should say he should have 2 lashes. So, yes, right? So therefore he comes and he says like this. It says in the Pasuk, Almana u'grusha v'chalala zona. What happens if the woman was all the above? What does that mean? So she got married, on each one. Right? She got married, and then she became an almana. Right? She got married to somebody else. Let's say another Kohen. She became a grusha, or a regular Jew. Doesn't matter what. She became a grusha. She got married, then grusha v'chalala. She got married, then she became a chalala. How do you call this? A chalala. So how did she become a chalala? He says over here, she got married to a Kohen, which obviously the Kohen is not allowed to get married to. She was already divorced. So she became a chalala. Then she became a zona. How did she become a zona? She had relations with a goy. Wow. So therefore, she had all 4. Almana, grusha, chalala, zona. If she's now going to come and she's going to go with another Kohen, he's going to get on every single name. He's going to get on every single name.
Gotta be in that order.
It has to be in that order. Because if it's not in that order, then already from the first one, she would become a chalala.
He would get 3.
Right?
It depends how many averot she did.
So he says over here, zinta. If right now she becomes a zona, then it's chalala, and then she became a chalala. Then it's garsha, and then she became divorced. Then it's tarmela, and then she became an almana. Eno chayav ela achat. She's only going to get 1. So if we reversed the order, right? Are you guys listening? We reversed the order. So you first started with the zona, then chalala, then grusha, then almana. How many? One. Only one.
Lama.
The Gemara is going to explain. So Amar More says, right, and he's going to come and he's going to say, Almana, eno chayav elachat. When it says Almana, it's only going to be chayav echat. Hay Almana yechidenu. What's the case of Almana? Ilema, if you're going to tell me now, Shebal Almanat Reuven. Shebal Almanat Reuven, Ve'al Almanat Shimon, Ve'al Almanat Levi. If you're going to tell me now that this Kohen Gadol had relations with three different Almanot, she had relations with Almanat Reuven, Almanat Shimon, and Almanat Levi. So, why are you only going to be chayav one? At the end of the day, you should be chayav on every single one, because it's three different women. Three different women. It's not the same woman that she's also an Almanat, also Grusha, also. No. Three different women. They're all Almanot. You should get 3 times. Right? Ayin Zayin Amubet. So he comes and he says, Hare gufin muchlakim. You see from here that the guf, right, the bodies are separated. And therefore there should be different names. But rather it was the same almana, but he had relations with her 3 times.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
So that makes more sense. Because why? Because then it should only be 1 lashes. But it's the same woman. Fine, he had 3 different relations, but it's the same woman. So says the Gemara, 1 second, what was the case? 77b. If there was no warning, so pshita they don't have echad. If there's no warning in between, so obviously it's only going to be 1 lashes, right? Ve'ela, but rather that trube al kol chalachat, they warned him each time. So if they're going to come and they're going to warn him on each time, right? He comes and he says, "Amayenu chayav elachat." So why are you only going to be chayav once? But now we already learned in a Mishnah, Nazir shaya shote yain kol yom kulo. Imagine you have a Nazir. Is a Nazir allowed to come and drink water? Or drink? But we learned in Naziros, right? Are you allowed? A Nazir is drinking wine all day. Eno chayav elachat. He's only going to be chayav once. Amrulo, if they told him al tishte, don't drink, and he's drinking, he's going to be chayav every single time. So same thing. If they didn't give him if they didn't give him a warning, so obviously it's going to be 1. And if they gave him a warning, he should be chayav every single one. So says the Gemara, what are we dealing with? Sheba'al almanat Reuven, shayita almanat Shimon, shayita almanat Levi. No, it was the same woman, but she's an almanat 3 times. Right?
So, by the way,
she got 1 second.
Times.
So what does that mean? She got married to Reuven, he died.
Yeah.
She got married to Shimon, he died. She got married to Levi, she died. So therefore, what happens is that since right now, right,
body,
since it's the same body and same name, because she's now an almanah for 3 different times. So I would have thought to say, Haresh Shemot Muchlakim, right? That means basically you have that the names are going to be different. And therefore, since there are 3 different names, so she should get 3 different lashes. But at the end of the day, it's the same body. Right? That's what he says. Meaning, it's 3 different names because she was Almanat Reuven, Almanat Shimon, Almanat Levi. But she got married to 3 different ones. But at the end of the day, when this guy comes and he has relations with her, right? So at the end of the day, it's 3 different names, but it's one body. And since it's 1 body, right, that's why he comes and he says it's only going to be chayav 1 malkut. So now we're going to go back to what we mentioned about almanah grusha v'chalala zona. Okay, almanah grusha v'chalala zona. What? Because there was almanah grusha v'chalala zona. Now we're talking about almanah. Right? It says. Almanah grusha v'chalala zona. Everyone listen carefully. Almanah grusha v'chalala zona. Hi Tana, my kasavar. This Tana, what does he hold? Kasavar, if he holds you, isur chalal isur. So ibchanami. If you're going to tell me now that an isur is going to be chalal isur, so then the opposite should also be the same thing. Which means even if the shemot are going to be in the other order, it should also be the same thing. Meaning, what do I care? What do I care that it had to be first almanah, yusha, chalala, zona in that order, which means the widow, the divorce, the chalala, and then the zona. You say the opposite also. Because already going to tell me now any isur chalal isur, which means an isur is not going to be chalal isur. So afilu kasedra zenamilo. So even on this seder, also it's not going to be the same way. So Amar Rava comes and he says, Haitana, this Tana, isur chalal isur letle. Isur chalal isur, he doesn't hold of it. But isur mosif itle, which means like this. It's very important to know that there's such a concept called in isur, which is going to be chalal isur. I remember, if you guys remember, I told you that Rav Asher Weiss, I once heard a shiur from him, and he said that the only heter that he found to smoke on Yom Tov was that any isur chalal isur. 1 isur cannot fall on another isur. If there's an isur to smoke in general, because you're damaging your health, So therefore, you cannot add another isur that you're not allowed to smoke on Yom Tov. So therefore, if there's no isur chal isur, so you're allowed to smoke on Yom Tov. That's only heter that he found. That's called isur chal al isur. One prohibition following another prohibition. However, though, according to everybody, if it's an add-on, meaning that the second prohibition adds on something else, so according to everybody, you do say that isur chal isur. Why? Because the extra isur added on something else to it. So he comes and he says, so he's going to say it like this: Almana asura lekohen gadol, v'shari lekohen idiot. An almana is prohibited to a kohen gadol, but she's permitted to a kohen idiot. Have la grusha, right? And therefore now it's going to become a grusha. Migu du sala isur legabe kohen idiot. Now you're adding on the isur to a kohen idiot. Itos v'la isur legabe kohen gadol. So now you're adding on to the kohen gadol, which means like this: an almana, is she permitted to a regular kohen? Yes. If she becomes now a grusha, what happened? Right. She's prohibited, right, to a regular kohen. If she's an almana and now you added on an isur of a grusha, this isur of grusha, did it add on something? It did add on, because now she's not allowed to get married to a regular kohen. The fact that she's not allowed to get married to a regular kohen, so therefore it's going to add on also to the kohen gadol. The kohen gadol anyway was not allowed to get married to her because she was an almana. Doesn't matter. But since grusha added on to a kohen idiot, then now she cannot get married to a kohen idiot. So now it adds on also to a kohen gadol.
I didn't really follow that.
One more time, right? You have a case of an almana. Is an almana allowed to get married to a regular kohen?
Yes.
Is an almana allowed to get married to a kohen gadol?
No.
Grusha. Let's say this almana gets married now, and now she becomes divorced. Is she allowed to get married to a regular kohen? No. Can she get married to a kohen gadol?
No.
Obviously not. So now says the Gemara like this: this grusha, did it add on an isur? Yes. But what did it add on? But why? What's it adding on? It's adding on an isur. Isur to who?
The kohen.
She wasn't allowed to which
kohen? No, kohen gadol
kohen ragil. That's what it is. Meaning like this. One more time. Regular kohen.
Yeah.
Meaning like this. Before she's an almana, can an almana get married to a regular kohen? Yes. Now she becomes a grusha. Can she get married to a regular kohen? No. Divorced. Can she get married to a regular kohen? No. That's why, by the way, on a ketubah, you'll write down metarchata. You will not. You're going to write down that she's divorced. You're not going to write down she's a almana. Let's say you have a woman that she was also what? No. One more time. A woman, not get. I said ketubah. One more time. It's written in a ketubah. If you have a woman that she's a widow, right? You're going to write down that she's a widow. If you're going to write down, if you have a woman that she's divorced, you're going to write down that she's divorced. Okay, so now, if she's a widow and divorced, which one do you write down? Divorced. Why? Because that means it's adding on the isur. So one more time. Here you have a case of an almana. Almana, she's prohibited to a kohen gadol. She could get married to any kohen gadol, any kohen.
In the beginning, she was excluded to all levels.
Now all levels of kohen. Okay, so therefore, since the isur added all the kohanim, if she now goes with a kohen gadol, she now gets 2 strikes. Because since the grusha added on to all the kohanim, now it adds on to the kohen gadol. She was already prohibited to a kohen gadol. She was an almana, but it doesn't matter. Because now that the grusha added on another level, another facet, I apply it also to the kohen gadol as well. That's why it has to be almana and then grusha, because I'm adding on. It's called an isur mosif. I'm adding on a prohibition to now all levels of kiuna. Okay? So one minute. Says now the Gemara, almana asura lekohen gadol, v'sharia lekohen idiot, avila grusha. So migu. Since there's a migu that you're adding on an isur to kohen idiot, so there's a migu. Since you're adding on isur to kohen idiot, now you're going to be adding on isur to the kohen gadol. But she's still permitted to eat truma, right? If she's a bat kohen, she could still get married. She could still eat truma. So when she becomes a halala, she's now not allowed to eat truma. Meaning like this: a woman that she's an almana, can she eat truma? If she's a bat kohen. There was no children. She's allowed. She's allowed to go. She's allowed to eat truma, right? What happens now? She's a grusha, right? So if she's a bat kohen, right, and there was still, she goes back to her father's house. She's allowed to eat truma. Once she becomes a halala, she's not allowed to eat truma anymore. So the isur of halala adds on. What is it adding on?
Is it
You don't
prohibition
have
the
to
same
do
as a
prohibition.
restriction? Is it?
Yeah, the same thing.
But
Prohibition
it
is restriction.
uses the word
right?
restriction here.
It's a restriction. Okay, because it's true. Because restriction just means she's restricted from eating truma. The other one's prohibition is getting married to a kohen. Right, but the same thing. Right? What does that mean? Here, all of a sudden, you're not allowed to now eat truma. So to me, you do something. Since you have an add-on, which now the add-on is that you're not allowed to eat truma. So therefore, when you go back to the kohen gadol, I could apply it again, even though she was already prohibited to a kohen gadol, because there's an add-on. Where was the add-on in a different case? But the fact that it's an add-on, the isur is mosif is chalal isur. It's going to be chalal another one. Ela zona. So now says the Gemara, but what does the zona add-on now? Isur zona, and now you understand why it has to be specifically in this order. Because if you're going to go the other order, there's no add-on. For example, a woman becomes a zona. What's the add-on? Exactly, there's no add-on. So therefore, so you have to do it in this order. It has to be an almana, add on grusha, add on chalala, add on zona. Now the Gemara asks, why is zona?
Israel can't marry a zona?
He could.
It says here.
1 minute. So says the Gemara, vayisur zona, ma'isur mosiba. What's the isur that you're adding on? So Amar Chana bar Rav Ketina, hoil v'shem znut posel beYisrael, which means like this. A zona could get married to a Jew. Obviously, hopefully, majority of Jews will not get married to a zona, but technically they good. But there's a shem zinut, meaning like this. If you have a woman that she's married, a married woman, and she now comes and she cheats under her husband, right? Not a Kohen. Forget about Kohen. No Kohen. Regular Jewish woman. So what happens? This is it's a mosif. What's mosif? The znut is mosif, that now she becomes prohibited also to the keuna, because she's a shem znut. And therefore, since it's also prohibiting a woman that she's even married to Yisrael, so the isur zona is mosif also on other isurim to do with the Kohen by itself. Meaning like this, here, technically speaking, you're right. We're not talking about zona by itself, because if you have a teenager, let's say, she went and she fooled around. Yeah, she fooled around. She becomes a zona. Fine. She does not get married to a Kohen. Fine, but she's allowed to get married to Israel. So what was the add-on? The add-on is if she's married. If she's a married woman, right? She becomes a surah lebala.
What's her name when she fools around after she's married? She's an
Infidelity.
adulteress.
No, but that adulteress is called a zona.
But I thought we called it a zona. So there's two categories of zona?
Yes. Right? And that's why it's called znut. Znut just means immoral relations. So therefore, this znut prohibits even by Israel. Why by Israel? Not like the first time marriage. That's why I said it's not first time marriage, because if a woman fooled around and now she let's say she does tshuva, or even she doesn't do tshuva, but now she finds a boyfriend that really bad wants to take her and doesn't want to fool around anymore. So now he wants to get married to her. So technically, she was a zona, but it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, she's allowed to get married to him. But let's say she's married already. And when she's married, she fools around. So now she becomes a zona towards her husband. Yeah. The fact that she becomes a zona towards her husband, and that's the add-on. So now that you have an add-on by a Israel, I could use that add-on for a Kohen as well. And therefore, that's why it says you had almana, grusha, chalala, zona. If you think about it, the chalala was an add-on only towards her. That's why he mentioned about the restriction, because it has to do with the restriction of eating truma. But it doesn't matter, but it's still called the restriction. So now you have the zona, which is also an add-on to do with the Israel. Once you have an add-on to do with the Israel, it's an isur mosif. Once it's an isur which is adding on, so that's going to apply also to Kohen. That's why we had to have that order: almana, grusha, zona, v'chalala, zona. Okay, so that's going to be like this. Says now the Gemara, Tana kamed Rav Shesha. So now we learned in the Braita according to Rav Shesha, kol shehu yikach harehu velo yikach. וכל שאינו בייקח, אינו ולא ייקח. פרט לכהן גדול שבא לאחותו, אלמנה. So he comes and he says this. There's a braita that comes and it says, when it says that the Kohen Gadol has to get married to a betula. And then the next pasuk says, that means the Kohen Gadol has to get married to a virgin. The next pasuk says, almana, grusha, v'chalala, zona, etel lo yikach. He cannot get married not to an almana, grusha, a widow, divorced woman, a chalala, a zona. He's not allowed to get married. So why are they brought up? If you already told me that he has to get married to a betula, obviously, what were you talking about? Almana, that she was a betula. How's she an almana? Well, like, what's going on exactly? She was a widow and she's a betula. How did that happen? She's a grusha. How did that happen? How's she a chalala? What are these cases then? So the Gemara says, kol shehu biyikach, hareu belo yikach. Ve kol she'eno biyikach, eno belo yikach, which means a woman that's permitted to a Kohen Gadol when she's a Betula, she becomes prohibited when she becomes a Almanah Grusha V'Chalal Zara. But a woman which was prohibited to a Kohen Gadol when she was a Betula, she's not prohibited to him when she becomes an Almanah Grusha Chalala Uzona. Prat the Kohen Gadol Sheba Lachutu Almanah, which comes to be Mamayet a Kohen Gadol that comes on to his sister when she becomes an Almanah, which means she's not prohibited because of Almanah, because she was already prohibited to him
which is more
as
severe.
a Betula. Exactly. Meaning she was already prohibited to him as a virgin. So the Isur of Almanah is not Chal, it's not adding on. Right? Why? Because the Kohen Gadol gets lashes because of his sister, not because of the Almanah. What do I care now that she's Almanah? It's his sister. So he already gets lashes. And that was already prohibited even when she was a virgin. So Elmaleh, sort of Sheshat comes and he tells the Tana, the Elmaleh Hamani, so who's the one that teaches this? So the Shimoni, the Amar and Isur Chal Isur. There's no Isur Chal Isur. The Tana, as we learned to the Braita, Rabbi Shimon says, Ha'ochel nevela b'yom kippurim. Imagine on Kippur, somebody comes and he eats a nevela. He's going to be patur. Because you're not allowed to eat on Kippur. So if you're going to eat non-kosher on Kippur, you're going to be patur on the nevela, right? Or you're going to be patur on the Ever Minachai, or whatever it is, on the karet, or whatever it is. The Rabbanan, but then you're going to tell me it's shitat to the rabbis that they argue on Rabbi Shimon. Ha'amri, he says, Chal Isur. The Isur is going to be Chal on another Isur. Okay? So he comes and he says like this. He comes and he says, right, the Isur is going to come and is going to be Chal on another Isur. For example, is Achoto.
You're going to lose your audience here.
Right? One more time. Right? He comes and he says like this. He says, what happens is that you're going to have an Isur Chal Isur. What is the Isur Chal Isur? Right? When you have one Isur here, you have the Isur of a sister. And then you have Isur of Almanah. You have Isur of Yom Kippur. And you have the Isur of Nevela, non-kosher. Okay? Remember, Nevela just means that they did not do Shechita to the animal. Right? They didn't slaughter the animal. So, if you hold like the rabbis, Isur Chal Isur, obviously you have to be going like Rabbi Shimon. So says the Gemara, Afilu Teima Rabbanan, even if you're going to tell me the rabbis, Kiyam Rabbanan, when do the rabbis say Isur Chal Isur? Hanamili Isur Chamur al Isur Kal. Only when you have an Isur Chamur, for example, eating on Yom Kippur, on Isur Kal, Nevela. Right? Meaning like this. If you eat non-kosher, what's Avera? Negative commandment. If you eat on Kippur, what's Avera? Karet, cutting off. So if it's one is Isur Chamur, a strict Isur, and one is Isur Kal, a light Isur. So now what he's trying to say is like this. When do the rabbis hold that an Isur falls on another Isur?
Light to heavy.
Right? It's only when you have a light. What does that mean? When you have an Isur Chamur coming on a stringent one falling on a light one. But on a Isur Kal, Isur Chamur, lo chai. When you have an Almanah to a sister, mean like this. Imagine right now, I'm going to be a newspaper, how do you call these people? The reporter, right? I'm going to come and I want to make a big bang. I want to make a lot of latch, a lot of noise. What am I going to write down? Kohen Gadol got married to an Almanah? Or a Kohen Gadol got married to a sister?
Sister.
To a sister. Because that's the Isur Chamur. That's a karet. The Almanah is the negative commandment. So therefore, one is the Isur Kal, a light Avera, and one of them is a powerful Avera. So therefore, I only add, right, the Chamur to the Kal. I only add the stricter one to the lighter one. I will never add the lighter one to a stricter one. This is not like nowadays that when you do in the secular courts, you just try to add on counts. One count of this and one count of that and one count of that. That's Isur Chal Isur, by the way. That's the concept, Isur Chal Isur. So we only hold that you do Isur Chal Isur either when it's going to be Mosif, it's going to add on to something. That means, not only did that, he did with Malas a fourth or he did something like that. It's adding on. Or when it's going to be something strict on something light, but not the other way around. Ika de'am. There are those that say, Hamani, who's this opinion? It's Rabbanan. It's going to be the rabbis. Yeah? Right? The Amri that they say, Isur Chal Isur, and Isur is going to be Chal Isur. When the rabbis say Isur Chal Isur, Hanamil Isur Chamur, Isur Kal. Isur Kal, Isur Chamur, right? Lo chai. The Rabbi Shimon, as if you're going to tell me now this is the Shita of Rabbi Shimon. Hashta, you just told me Isur Chamur, Isur Kal, Lo chai, and Isur Chamur and Isur Kal is not going to be chai. Isur Kal, Isur Chamur, right? So then it's like, obviously not. It's a Kal V'chomer, which means, basically, remember, Ika D'Amri just means that we flip the version. Right? Ika D'Amri means there are those that say. There are those that say is literally, but it means that there's another version of the Gemara. At the beginning, we went and we said, who's this author of the Mishnah? Rabbi Shimon. Because if it's going to be Rabbanan, you can't say that. We answered, even according to the Rabbanan, when do you add on Isur Chal Isur on strict to light, not light to strict? Now we're flipping it. Who's the Tana of our Mishnah? The rabbis. That the rabbis say Isur Chal Isur. Now, if you're going to tell me it's the rabbis that they say Isur Chal Isur, when is this? Only in a strict to a light, but light to a strict, no. Now he says, but if you're going to tell me it's going to be according to Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Shimon says Isur Chamur al Isur Kal lo Chayil, that an Isur Chamur on an Isur Kal, it's not going to be Chal, which means that according to him, any Isur Chal Isur at all. So Kal v'chomer, if it's going to be a light on a difficult one, it's not going to be Chal. Meaning, if according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, you never hold,
effect.
right? It doesn't take effect ever. What do I care whether it's going to be light or strict and light? It doesn't exist. So I answer the Gemara. I would have thought to say maybe Isur Kuna is different. Meaning, I would have thought that even according to Rabbi Shimon, this is a Kohen. A Kohen is a different world. Because Kohanim, they have to be holy, they have to be above and beyond, they have to be something completely different. So I would have thought it's going to be completely different. Kamash Malan comes to teach you that it's the same halachot. Meaning, don't say that Isur Kuna is different. Okay? Fine. Amaleh of Papa Abaye. Says of Papa Abaye. Yisrael Abalachoto. Right? A person that has relations with a sister. Zona Mashvile. He makes her into a zona, right? That's for sure. Correct? He makes her into a zona. But what about chalala mashvile or no mashvile? Does he make her into a chalala or not? Meaning, does he can now make her? He made her into a zona. But the question is, did he make her into a chalala? So says the Gemara, right, as follows. Obviously, this is talking about if a Kohen is going to have relations with her afterwards. Does he get only one lashes because of zona or because of zona and chalala? Okay? Now, lalacha, there's no difference because anyway, right? He comes and he says, by achilat truma, even a zona is not allowed to eat a truma. So let's say the sister, well, let's say they're both kohanim. Let's say he's a kohen. He's with his sister. So anyway, whether it's a zona or a chalala, they're both, she's not allowed to eat, right? Yeah, 100%. But the question is, did he make her into chalala as well or not? So says the Yimna, right? Right? 1 second. He says, at the end of the day, right? It comes and it makes her into a chalala. Says 1 second, why do you make a kol sheken? If right now a chiyuv of a lav, a negative commandment, makes her into a chalala, even though there's no karet, kal v'chomer, if somebody does karet, remember going with a sister is karet. It's much worse than a lav, a negative commandment. So all the more so to make her a chalala, Oziel mar maybe en chalala ela misur kiuna. The deen of halal is only from the yisur of kiuna and not from anything else. So Elmaleh comes and he says, no, en chalala misur kiuna bilvad. The concept of halala only applies to kiuna. Meaning if it's just regular Jews and everything, we don't make halalim. Halalim only applies to deans of kohen. When we're dealing with kohanim, if we're not, we don't talk about halalim. Okay. Amar Rava says, how do we know this concept that the rabbi said, halala ela misur kiuna? The halala is only going to be from en halala ela misur kiuna. The time is going to write lo yomar grusha be kohen gadol. Right? Why do we not say grusha by kohen gadol? Right? What do we just learn from Kal V'chomer? Which means like this. The question is like this: can a grusha get married to a regular kohen?
Yeah. No.
One more time.
No.
Right? Grusha? No.
No.
Divorced woman. Can a divorced woman get married to a regular kohen? No. So why do I have to tell me that a kohen gadol cannot get married to a grusha? It's extra, right? Why do I need to mention it? Don't mention it. Learn it from Kal V'chomer. Va'ana mina, and I'm going to say, if she's not allowed to get married to a regular kohen gadol mibai, obviously she's not allowed to marry. So why did it say then? So just like there's a difference between grusha and zona v'chalala by kohen idiot, but the Torah actually separated them. So too, it's going to be an extra love, meaning it's an extra vera. Meaning the reason why the Torah said it was to add on another set of makot and another set of averot. That's like Lashon Hara. If you learn the introduction of Nishamura, the introduction of the Chavetz Chaim, he comes and he says, Lashon Hara had so many averot to teach you, look how many averot a person does. It's not just one avera, you split it up into many averot. So it's the same thing. So says the Gemara, Pshita, obviously, Migra Gara, what? The Kohen Gadol has a less Kiddusha than a Kohen Idiot, that you're not going to bring it down? Obviously, so you want to make sure that you're going to bring down all the averot. But rather, just like there's going to be a difference between grusha zona chalala by kohen idiot, so to almana chaluka is grusha, chalala zona by kohen idiot. So says the Gemara, chalala lama neemra. So why does it say chalala? En chalala l'misur kana. Chalala is only by yisur kona. Okay, so therefore that's why he's coming and he's actually explaining that since the yisur of chalala is only by the kohen, So the fact that the Torah wrote down the Isur Halala to do the Ilmanah Grusha, which is only by Kohanim, and it didn't write it down by the normal cases, even by Yisraelim, we learned that Halala is only by Kiuna. The concept of Halala is only by Kiuna. Okay, so therefore that's how we learn it. That means if somebody's going to ask you, how do you know the Halal only applies by Yisure Kiuna? You learn it from here. Right? You learn from here that since over here we made a differentiation between Grusha v'Zona v'Chalala by Kohen Ediot, so too by Almanah, which is going to be a differentiation between Grusha v'Chalala v'Zona by Kohen Gadol. We came and we learned that obviously Chalala was written an extra time by Kohen Gadol to teach you that it's only going to be by Isure Kiuna. Zona la ne'menema. So why does it say Zona? Ne'emar kan Zona, it's written by Kohen Gadol Zona, and it says by Kohen Ediot Zona. Ma kan Zaro Cholim, so too by Kohen Gadol. Right? If he has relations with any of these women, the child is considered a halal. So too, lehalan, so too by Kohen Ediot, Zaro Cholim. His children is considered a halal. And therefore, Ravashi says, Hilkach, therefore, a Kohen or a Kohen Gadol has relations with his sister, right? Zona mashvila. He makes her into a zona, but not a halala. And therefore, if he has relations with her again, then he makes her into a halala.
The second biyah,
but not the first one.